let's just jump right into this explainer by addressing a massive myth. You see, wealth isn't really about what you buy. It's actually about what you fiercely refuse to buy, even when you can easily afford it. It's not the flashy purchases that made self-made millionaires rich. Instead, it's a very specific mindset about exactly where their money does not go. Most people just assume getting rich means spending more once you have more, right? But it's actually the exact opposite. Self-made millionaires actively and fiercely avoid 7 specific money traps. And what's wild is that trap number 5 is a sneaky little habit that average people do constantly without even realizing it's draining them. So in this explainer, we're going to look incredibly closely at the true spending patterns of the wealthy. But we're not focusing on what they splurge on. Nope, we're looking at the 7 things they consistently, almost religiously, avoid. Section 1. The illusion of status. Who are you really buying it for? Okay, so point number 1 is buying things specifically to be seen. You know, the flashy car, the designer bag, that insanely expensive watch, bought just to signal wealth to absolute strangers. It's a terrible investment. Honestly, the people you're trying to impress with a designer logo usually can't even tell the difference. And the people who actually can tell the difference, they don't care. Wealthy individuals buy for function or their own genuine joy, not to put on a show for an audience who's going to forget about them by tomorrow. And this perfectly ties into point number 6, actually, which is avoiding purchases driven by peer pressure or FOMO. Everyone else is booking that crazy trip or jumping on that viral trend, so it feels kind of wrong not to, right? Well, wealthy people are remarkably comfortable being the one person in the room who just skips it. They evaluate every single purchase against their own personal goals, completely ignoring the group's expectations. Let's move to section 2, debt and depreciation. This is the fastest way to bleed money. Point number 2 is taking on high-interest debt for depreciating items. This is a massive trap. Think about financing a brand new car or the absolute latest tech gadget, but at a crazy high interest rate. Rich people are extremely cautious about borrowing money for anything that is suddenly worth way less the absolute second they walk out of the store. Self-made millionaires avoid this kind of financial leak at all costs. It's literally money down the drain. And hey, speaking of silent leaks, keep point number 4 in the back of your mind as we go, because it's something almost every average person pays for every single month without ever stopping to do the math on what it costs them over a decade. Which brings us to section 3, the silent monthly drains, creep and subscriptions. Point number 3 is lifestyle creep. When a raise, a nice bonus, or just a really good year happens, most people immediately upgrade their lifestyle to match that new income. But self-made millionaires, they deliberately delay this upgrade. They want to keep the gap between what they earn and what they spend as wide as humanly possible for as long as possible. And then there's point number 4, that sneaky monthly drain I warned you about earlier, unused subscriptions. We are talking about streaming services you literally never watch, gym memberships you haven't used since January, and premium apps just auto-renewing endlessly in the background. A $15 subscription feels like absolutely nothing in the moment, right? But 10 of them left completely unused for 10 years equals thousands and thousands of dollars. $18,000 to be exact. That is money that just disappears into thin air instead of being invested and growing. All right, section 4, the high cost of comfort, emotional spending and convenience. This brings us to point number 5, that massive secret drain I mentioned at the start. Emotional purchases made under stress. Buying something just to soothe a bad mood, a brutal day at work, or honestly, even just out of boredom. This is one of the biggest silent budget killers because nobody ever labels it as spending. It rarely feels like wasting money in the moment, it feels like self-care. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerously easy to justify over and over again. Similarly, point number 7 is overpaying for convenience you don't actually need. Think about paying for rush shipping when you aren't even in a hurry, or buying premium versions when the basic one handles the job perfectly. The wealthy only pay premium prices when the actual time saved is genuinely worth more to them than the dollars spent. They evaluate the trade-off. Emotional shopping to cure a bad mood, unnecessary convenience fees, they might seem pretty small individually, but they're just tiny holes in your financial bucket. And together, 1,000 tiny leaks will eventually drain your wealth entirely. Which leads us to our final takeaway in section 5, the power of intentionality, plugging the leaks. Because here's the thing that connects all 7 of these avoided habits. It isn't about being cheap. No, it is entirely about being intentional. When you aren't leaking money on status symbols, bad debt, lifestyle creep, and emotional shopping, every single dollar you didn't waste is a dollar that gets to compound and build real wealth somewhere else.
So, take a second to really think about it. Which of these 7 things is your biggest money leak right now? Be honest with yourself and drop the number in the comments below. Because remember, wealth isn't about what you make, it's about what you keep. If you want a follow-up explainer on exactly how to audit your spending and permanently plug these leaks, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss it.